Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So we're 3 weeks away from Election Day and Donald Trump is in an unprecedentedly solid position. Currently in the national popular vote, Harris with a slight lead. She leads by 1.3% after several months of glowing positive media coverage. The honeymoon, well, is it really working out for her all that great? At this point, not really, because you have to look at the big picture. Donald Trump does not need to win the popular vote to win the election. In fact, the popular vote usually skews more Democrat. So the fact that it's even a question if Trump could win the popular vote and it's on the table is already bad news for somebody like Kamala Harris. And you have a lot of polls that dropped lately that are showing movement towards Donald Trump. The movement is going in his direction. It's not going in her direction. And was there ever a time in 2016 or 2020, this late in an election cycle, where the polls were within a 1.5? No, there really hasn't been. And the only poll that's in the aggregate that has like a right-leaning reputation as we speak would be Rasmussen. You have a lot of polls like Morning Compost and Ipsos, and even the numbers for Harris, they're weakening in those polls. That's not good news for her. Even very liberal polls that missed in 2020, like Quinnipiac, they're now showing a Trump lead in the multi-candidate race. That's not a position she wanted to be in. It's not. You look at the statewide polls, Donald Trump leads in every state with the exception of Wisconsin. He leads in North Carolina and Arizona by more than a point. Even Michigan is kind of moving towards that status. Not entirely the position she wants to be in. And her campaign is not reacting in a positive way because they know that they have a lot of trouble with a lot of key demographics. And the more they try to address it, I feel like the more they're legitimizing it, it's creating a spiral of doom. And if you're 3 weeks away from an election, that is the worst position that you possibly could be in. So we're going to dive into this a little bit more, but first I have to tell you guys about my merch store over at shop.redeaglepolitics.com because we're 3 weeks away from the election. Why not get some election merchandise? We're doing a limited time special. You get free shipping on orders over $50 and you can buy one, get one 20% off all t-shirts, tank tops, and mugs. We got the Trump iconic design. We got all these epic designs, and my favorite is the Trump iconic black mug, which you can get 20% off with the purchase of a t-shirt. You have the Trump iconic bullet American flag design on the front, and you have on the back the inspirational quote. It's all high quality. We have a lot of products. We have a lot of 5-star reviews. Make sure you guys check it out. The link will be in the description and pinned comment down below. So it's clear that Kamala Harris's basement strategy was unsustainable. It was not able to last for a long period of time. She couldn't just hide and coast from all this glowing media coverage because after a certain point, people are going to want answers. And when she was talking to the media, it wasn't exactly all that solid. Her numbers kind of peaked, and now Donald Trump is starting to galvanize more undecided voters, and she's forced to come out and speak more, so much so to the point where she's going on Fox News, but even more of a just out-of-the-box type of thing that I don't think was on a lot of people's bingo cards. Now she wants to go on Joe Rogan, which again, the left has demonized Joe Rogan, who's pretty much this, fence-sitting centrist guy, just because he sometimes will talk about some, anti-establishment things. They've basically demonized him. Oh, he's an extremist. They've tried to get him deplatformed from Spotify, and I believe they've gotten some episodes of his removed from certain platforms. And now they're begging for him to platform Kamala Harris in the process. Now they're in talks. Donald Trump, he seems very likely to go on Joe Rogan. It's been a very long time. I'm kind of glad that it has taken this long just because of the fact that it would add a lot of momentum down the stretch. And that's why Kamala Harris wants to do it. Why is she copying Trump? Because Trump's policies are popular. They're popular on the border. She tries to copy the policy, and then nobody ends up believing her. When it comes to no taxes on tips, genius strategy. Even though the Culinary Union is still going to be in bed with the Democrats in Nevada, they endorse the policy. And the Culinary Union, after even Kamala Harris came out and endorsed it, has basically warned that, yeah, Donald Trump probably is up in Nevada. He's probably favored in Nevada. And the polls didn't show it for a little while, and now they're starting to show Donald Trump in the lead in Nevada. And the early voting data, we have, very few returns from Clark County, but so far Republicans are not in a bad shape. Same thing goes for Arizona, where there's a little bit more and Republicans are doing well, but it's very early again. But the bottom line is that the data doesn't look great for Harris. The polling data doesn't look great for Harris. The fundamentals are awful, and she's tied to them at the hip. She can't run away from them. And anything she talks about, she's been there for 4 years. Why hasn't she exactly done it? And she comes off as a little, robotic when she tries to sound more intelligent than she really is. She repeats the same talking points over and over again. You've reached a point where even SNL is openly mocking her, openly mocking Tim Walz. That's not to say that they're not mocking Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, but, the fact that they're kind of going out there and mocking her for things that Republicans mock her over kind of shows that this whole, media coverage thing, is it really working out all that well? Is she still receiving the positive coverage that she was receiving a month or two ago? Not exactly, because she's forced to go out there and answer to the American people, and she has no answers, and people can see that, so much so to the point where now she might even want to go on Joe Rogan. And by the way, I think that if she does go on Joe Rogan, that could be the end of her campaign. Joe Rogan is somebody who, he's, kind of been like this fence sitter, whatever. But the format that his podcasts are typically in, they're very fast paced. They are long-form conversations. Is she going to sit down for 2 hours and talk to Joe Rogan? She's going to be exposed, essentially unscripted, because I know that Rogan's probably not going to edit the podcast in her favor. That's not really how he rolls, even if he has kind of had this beef with Trump or whatever. When it comes to Trump, those are the conversations where he thrives in. He becomes likable. He doesn't have to do that much, talking. It's not like a rally where he'll rally for 2 hours, but still he'll be able to go out there and he'll be on the most watched podcast, and typically he'll come across as likable. Him going on a podcast like that is going to cause him to gain more votes than he's obviously going to lose. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, it's an audience that will already kind of not be that fond of her, and she is going to be just proven to be a little bit incompetent, because this is not like a scripted thing. It's off the cuff. Rogan is an out-of-the-box type of guy. That's not something that I feel like is going to do her all that many favors. But keep in mind that when it comes to men, that's mainly the listeners of the podcast. They're men. The same media that says, well, men are just, they're only getting information from far-right voices, and they call Rogan some far-right voice, even though he's kind of like a middle-of-the-road type of individual. He kind of leaned left on some things, and maybe he's not as left-leaning as he was. But, the main takeaway is they just demonize everything like that is normal, and then they expect men to end up voting for them when they're demonizing things that are typically considered to be masculine. It's not how it works. Tim Walz was supposedly their masculine icon, this guy from the Midwest with jazz hands that kind of just talks down on people. And the only man that he appeals to is that stereotypical soy drinking person that lives in maybe a college town in the Midwest, but not like the factory worker from Racine, Wisconsin, for example, that may have voted for Trump and then voted for Biden and then is now considering Trump again. There's not going to be a lot of appeal there. But you see what Democrats are doing, especially black men in particular. They're not getting the turnout. The early voting data in Pittsburgh, it's up, but then you look at where the votes are coming from, it's mostly the affluent white areas for Democrats. You're not seeing that data looking too good for them among black voters in terms of requests in North Carolina, even in Georgia. Early voting turnout today is through the roof, but where is it through the roof? Largely in these exurban areas. There's a lot of long lines there, and there's no wait times at all in Fulton County and DeKalb County. So You look at that and it shows there's warning signs, and she knows there's warning signs. And then you send Obama out there and he insults the voters. You don't insult voters. You don't want to talk down on voters. No, you don't own these people's votes if they're considering Trump. They're going to be turned off by that. I hate to give them advice. It's not like they'll listen anyways. But you have to deliver, something to these voters. And I think that they did pick up on that because Obama goes out there, basically insults these people to their face. And we kind of see Kamala Harris, now she's trying to propose policies. And even then, it's a doom spiral because this is what she's planning on doing. She's apparently providing loans. Well, why aren't you providing these loans if you're already in office now? Biden doesn't really have a lot of agency over his decisions. He's not difficult to persuade to do things. Why aren't you doing them now? And this is a problem for the Democrats as things stand today. You look at the fact that they can't really run on new things because they're running somebody who's tied at the hip to this administration, and she goes out there and says that there wasn't anything that she would have done differently. That's disqualifying in the eyes of a lot of people. And now you want to talk about policy, a lot of which you're just ripping off from Donald Trump or something like this, where, it's just a bunch of stuff that is kind of vague, like, oh, she's now doing the crypto thing, which Donald Trump has talked about, the crypto. He's spoke at conventions. Now she brings up crypto. Trump is kind of ahead of the curve on this. You're a little late to the party. Flip-flopping doesn't usually work out too well. And then she brings up legalizing weed, which is laughable because, I don't understand how you could step on a rake like that. And it's a policy that technically is relatively considered popular when it polls. A lot of these state referendums are, more popular. And again, you look at states like Arizona. I think they already have it in Arizona, already have it in Michigan, where that's not going to really move the needle in those places. But we talk about weed. Kamala Harris is now trying to push this policy through. Kamala Harris locked up a lot of people for marijuana. She did. That's what she was known for in the Democrat primary. So she wants to talk about weed and bring up weed when she was the one that got eviscerated by Tulsi Gabbard about the hypocrisy about the issue. That's a problem. And I'm not necessarily saying that I support marijuana recreational legalization, but what I'm saying is it's hypocritical. It doesn't bode well. And it's not really a good look when you do that and then you also let violent criminals go. I don't believe that people should be in prison for however long she put these people in prison for a plant possession. Obviously not really in support of the legalization for numerous reasons. I know a lot of people that are watching probably disagree with that, and that's their prerogative. But the bottom line is that Kamala Harris, when it comes down to it, is the biggest hypocrite. She's known for locking people up for weed, and now she wants to run on weed legalization, thinking that that's going to be something that helps her. It's not going to be something that helps her at all. And that's a big reason why a lot of black men were not fans of her, even on the Democrat side, back in the 2020 primary. And now she wants to make it a cornerstone of her campaign. This is the button-mashing stage. We saw this with Biden after the debate. They kind of just tried to bounce around on all these attack lines and how they were going to prop him up as somebody who's competent, and they could not effectively do it. He was forced out of the race. I think that was the goal of the establishment all along. I don't know if it was their goal to replace him with Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris is somebody that basically has all of the negatives of the Biden administration that she's going to have to own. And she's not really going to have any answers to it. And then she's got all these other, policy proposals from 2019, 2020 that were extremely unpopular. And now she's trying to do a 180. She's a textbook definition for a candidate that is just doomed to fail. She would never last in a normal election cycle. The fact that she was subbed in at the last minute is probably the best thing that she currently has going for her as a candidate. But again, it's called a honeymoon for a reason. It wasn't supposed to last. And they're so, afraid of losing minority men that they have to bring up just these things that we've heard time and time again. They're lies. They're just lies. She says the Central Park Five. Well, here's the deal about the Central Park Five, Kamala. The Central Park Five admitted their guilt. Donald Trump took out a full-page newspaper calling for the return of the death penalty. Not even for them, but what they, at the time, confessed to doing was abysmal. And they were doing some other stuff that was not very savory at the time as well. but that's besides the point. But the notion, oh, this is horrible, this is racist because Trump took out an ad. No, Trump wants to protect people living in New York City. In the article that he wrote, he said, of every color, protect these people because we have an unsafe city in New York. And Trump cares about crime. He cares about safety. Like, that's messaging that is good politically. If you want to bring that up, read the article. I think 99% of people with common sense, actually 100% of people with common sense, they're going to look at that article and say, okay, that was completely justifiable and needed because what happened at the time was horrible. If some people confess to doing things that they didn't do, how is that Trump's fault? You could maybe blame the NYPD or whatever, but you can't blame Donald Trump. And then she goes on, oh, Project 25 again, something that Donald Trump did not craft and has distanced himself from several times. So when you have nothing to run on, you just regurgitate the old stuff, steal Trump's policies, and I guess step on rakes about bringing up your own past. And that's why she's falling in the polls. That's why she's not the favorite. It's just a matter of people getting out and voting, because if we do that, then she's not winning. If we stay home, if people are disaffected and they're like, oh, I don't really know if it's going to make a difference, well, it's going to make a difference. We've seen the past 4 years, and we have to overwhelm the system, and people need to get out and vote, and make sure you get your disaffected friends out to vote, and make sure you go to the community tab and do your homework. If you can volunteer, but you're not volunteering, it's definitely leaving a lot off the table, and people can even get paid to do so, depending on which way they choose to volunteer. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.